Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Okay, it is the end of the year and a start of a new one, and we are going to go through what we did at a recent Power Match peer coaching, where we're going to go through a high or a couple highs, a couple lows, something to take forward into 2026, and then one thing to let go. So as you listen along, we'd love for you to do that reflection as well. But first, Nat, how, in a word or two, Nat, maybe a couple, I'll give you a couple words. How would you describe 2025?
The only thing I was going to say before my description is, should we add the link at the in the podcast description for people to do their own reflections?
Yes, let's do that.
And that will email you your reflection, and then we'll email it to you probably again at the end of 2026, so you have a reminder of how you thought it was going to go. 2025, I've been referring to it as a year of 3/3. Feels like it was thirds, and there was a great start. There was I fell off the cliff in the middle for all sorts of reasons, and then the end started to feel really optimistic. So I kind of feel like that was my experience.
Okay. So so your word your word is a rule 3/3, which there are only 3/3.
Thirds. I'll take it down to one word. Thirds.
Thirds. A year of thirds. If I were to split my year into thirds, I would say started off well. The middle was I felt like it was a bit ho-hum, and my final third was bad, which will reflect on it will probably and not all personal. I thought work was really challenging as well. Like I just thought everything was challenging. So I feel like I have a slightly more negative view, and we're going to talk back at 2025. That's going to come through. But it probably is because that last third I found really challenging.
I've just mentioned this to you, that we're recording this on the 3rd of Jan, by the way. It's a Saturday. Look at us. We're such hard workers. But I went fishing yesterday, and I'm obnoxious around New Year's. So I'm like, won't see you till next year. I'm doing all of that. So I've been doing a lot of highs and lows. And there were 4 of us who went fishing. We took out this torpedo thing. We surf casted. It was a bit of a debacle. The torpedo kept coming back in. It was like fish guts everywhere. I was like, ugh. And it was interesting asking everyone to rate how they thought the fishing went, because I was like 1 out of 10. And then a couple of others were like 8 out of 10. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, we've learned some things. We problem solved some things. We got down to a beautiful outside beach. And I was like, isn't it so funny how I was just thinking about you talking about the last third of the year, how we can have such different perceptions. And that actually made me feel better about fishing, because I was like, oh, they all thought it was a 6 or 8. I said, I'll go up to a 3. I'll go up
That's
to a
kind of
3.
it's kind of interesting because it would have been the classic what does success you like? You're like, things will function and I will catch a fish. And they were like,
Yes.
we're hanging out on the beach. That is success.
And it was just a nice reminder. It's a
Yeah.
nice reminder that we all have different ways of looking at the same thing.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to try and put aside some of my negativity because we're moving into highs here. So is there a high
Do
or
we wanna start with highs, or do we wanna start with lows? I feel like it feels nicer to start with lows.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh my gosh. Do you know what? I hadn't prepped for lows. There's just a weird feeling about lows, but let's do it. Let's just see what comes tumbling out with my lows. Go on, Nat. What are a couple challenges for you? A mistake or fails or whatever, a couple lows you want to share?
Well, I think I've talked about this a little bit, but my time on the couch where I felt like, when was it? It must have been the 2nd, 3rd of my year of thirds, where, like, the concept of going out and meeting friends in town felt like such an impossible dream. Like, that was old me when I was young and energetic, and I just went through this whole patch where all I wanted to do on a Friday night was, like, be alone at home, and Kyla would go out and visit her friends, and I needed absolute downtime for Friday night and most of Saturday morning to even feel like I had a break in the weekend. But then it sort of spiraled into more and more wanting that. So yeah, I feel like that was kind of a down patch, and I still to this day don't know what it was. The only other theory I've got at the moment is it could be perimenopause, because we've now realized I had all sorts of symptoms that I hadn't connected the dots on. It could have been because it felt like a real grind, and I think I started to go down that kind of negative um thought pathways of like, what are we doing? um, yeah, I think that was probably my biggest, if I think about the overall year, that was my biggest personal down. I feel like that has no comparison to like anyone else who's had like sickness or anything else in their families. I don't want to take someone else's down, but like for me, that was my thing.
You're allowed to, claim your own personal lows, and I feel like mine I'm glad that you articulated what you just did because actually that was a really good summary of my lows, and perhaps that I just experienced them at different times from you, but the word you used was grind, and I found 2025 a grind, and I was trying to reflect, was it actually a grind year round? Because we had lots of in-person stuff, which of course I get energized by humans and by, us delivering stuff in person, I really get and actually even online, I get energized by. So, the fact that I had so many endorphin and dopamine hits throughout the year, it's funny that I'm masked by this entire sense of grind, and it's possibly like we're in that grindy period of figuring stuff out, and it didn't end on a majestic high in a way for me, so I just thought, "Oh, that whole grind of a year," and it's just felt like a grind, so I love that you articulated that, which meant you're at your desk, at your computer a ton, you're not moving a lot. Add to that perimenopause, which I still am just tired. Like, I find that my energy levels are far lower than they used to be, but that would be my only complaint with perimenopause is the just a sense of low energy. So, yeah, I love that. That is my low, as well.
And I think that's something, I mean, I like to think we're both pretty open about like I don't think either of us subscribes to toxic positivity, but I do find, and because we are constantly doing cool stuff with Power Suit, the number of people, I don't know if you get this, I presume you do as well, who come up to you being like, "Wow, it looks like you're really thriving and everything's going amazing." And you're like, "I've just crawled off the couch." And I don't ever want anyone to think that everything is all sunshine and rainbows because starting a business is really hard and you can't really explain what makes it hard because it's, I think what I've boiled it down to, and especially last year, was the uncertainty makes it hard. Like, I don't think either of us is afraid of hard work. We will work our butts off to make something happen and we will find wins where we find all of that stuff. But when you're doing all of that and there is an opportunity cost of doing a lot of other easier things and making a lot more money, and not knowing the outcome of all this hard work, I think to me that was probably the hardest thing because we deliberately started in a down economic cycle for lots of great reasons. But it is really weird when you're looking forward going, is anyone gonna like get a membership next month? Like it's a weird feeling to not have that certainty or some level of certainty that A, you're gonna get money in the door, and B, that the thing that you are doing is actually building into something.
Yeah, it's interesting 'cause I agree with, all everything that you said, but I also think it would have been a grind had we been in corporate and had paid jobs as well, and I only say that because of, it felt like the sentiment in my peer group, I'm not gonna obviously name any names or out anyone, but the sentiment of the peer group, who are all in paid employment, by the way, incredibly, impressive, challenging roles, very exciting growth roles, but they equally all had really tough grindy years between state managing really difficult stakeholders, performance managing people, unrealistic deadlines, expectations that were tough. You know, some people had really tough feedback. Some people were are look seeking actively seeking employment. Others had burnout. Like, and then of course we've got this gorgeous membership of power suitors who I think, again, my lens right now is negative, full disclosure, but I think everyone had a tough year. I do recall some wins, but I think there were lots of people that lost their jobs. There's lots of people that didn't, that were unfairly treated or went through emotional or mental health stuff. So I think all around 2025,
I
goodbye.
totally agree. I think for me, the challenge was that my brain started operating differently. It normally defaults to optimism, and it started to default to pessimism, which I don't like in my head, like I'm with myself all the time. But you're bang on. And I think that was probably another thing that fed into that doom and gloom feeling in the second third of the year is we have a huge privilege to be able to work on Power Suit. But what comes with that is you often are on the receiving end of hearing about the hardest things that people have to go through at work. And there was definitely a lot of, yeah, the uncertainty about redundancies, some of those really challenging conversations people were having. And even though I think we're both very good at being able to empathize and sympathize without getting super emotionally involved, it is pretty hard to hear how tough some of these years were for people. And yeah, and so no, I totally agree there. You're right. That was probably actually feeding into it. It wasn't a great year for a lot of people.
And it's worth noting, the political environment was an absolute disaster. Like, that I found actually watching geopolitics globally, I didn't get as sucked in as Trump. I don't even listen to him. I like politics as a intellectual exercise, so I find it additive as opposed to taking away. But you could not escape from headlines of corruption and rich people getting richer and tech bros and leaders on the global stage making really dangerous and poor decisions and war. And I just feel like it was in your face all the time. And so I think in terms of the global sentiment and share market uncertainty, I think has been super yuck. So there's that, like, you did not wake up to many great news stories, I'm afraid. And so I think no matter how I try and buffer myself, that is a thing. Like, the world is not a very nice place at the moment. And,
Well, and also I think we grew up in an era of unprecedented prosperity and happiness, like, when you look around at any other era, but we managed to have the first, what, 30, 40 years of our lives with relative stability, growth, not a lot of wars or conflicts that felt close to home, and suddenly that's all changed. I do think as well, now we're going down the negative path, which I feel like it's good to debrief on all this stuff. I think also the way we responded to those things, like, I feel like we have lost the art of being able to disagree and still like other people. Like, the tribalism is so embedding itself at the moment, and I'm hoping it's a short-term thing, but I think even talking about some of those conflicts, and how people were turning on each, like, none of us, for example, are involved in Israel versus Palestine. Like, I'm not involved in it, I'm not, participating, but the speed at which conversations around those things can become incredibly heated and almost personal, and almost like you're either with me or against me, rather than, well, I think all of us would rather, well, not all of us, but a lot of us would rather have peace, and we all want to be on the right side of things and we want to support things. But, like, yeah, I found that quite challenging as well. And I'm using that as one example. And I wasn't involved in any of those conversations, but I kept hearing about them, like, people who are like, "They don't think this," or, and I'm like, "Oh, I feel like we're all now jumping on that bandwagon of turning against each other, and kind of the canceling of people who we don't agree with and stuff." And it just feels like the maybe it is the top level geopolitical landscape has now, and internet has now fed to, like, changing our behavior with each other as well.
You nailed it all. It was, tribalism 100% is because of that, and the online is and geopolitics and uncertainty and terrible, terrible humans are leading the charge. And everyone is looking for identity and where they fit and where they find like-minded people. And then sadly, algorithms is, you're in an echo chamber, but dangerous echo chambers of division. 100%
And how to kind
really,
of
yeah.
showcase our upsetness. Like, I think when you're upset by something, you want to showcase how upset you are, or get it out somehow,
Yeah.
and somehow it ends up,
Yeah.
yeah, being
Okay,
interpersonal.
we need to I'll make one last mention, obviously, as some may be aware, my mom got cancer and was ill, and I just feel like I'm not naming that as a low because while that was, like, really stressful in the moment, I feel like there were a lot of positives, which I'll get to. So, I just think it's worth naming. I'm not being fake, I'm not masking anything, but when I think of the year, that was just one challenge among many, like, it actually
Yeah,
didn't
it was.
outweigh my other life challenges, honestly. So I just wanna point out I'm not being fake and not transparent because while that first 2 months were super yuck, it's actually really ended on a high. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyway,
No, I think that's great, and I also think that, anyone who's listening, it is an interesting thing. I feel like we are pretty open and we're pretty honest about, life, but this is going out to the world, and, like, as per what we've just discussed, you sometimes we all make choices about what to put out and what to not put out, and I think it's fair to have some things that you go, "Actually, this is really personal, and until I'm ready to talk about it, I'm not going to."
True. Okay, let's talk about highs. Let's move into some good things that we can look back on.
Well, it wasn't fishing.
No, 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 no. Let's talk about some highs. So we did this with our we went out for a dinner the other night as a family, and we did this and went around in highs. And I love that Kyle said his highs were that the kids smashed it, and I was like, yeah, that is a real parent thing to do. And it sounds weird because you're like, oh, you live vicariously through your children. But when you invest so much in a couple humans and they're finding their feet and moving into adulthood, which is ultimately our only goal is to be able to produce kind humans that make the world a better place and can stand on their own 2 feet. We saw real signs of that this year. Like I do. So I just want to echo a real high for me, similar echo Kyle, is that the kids did some really cool stuff. And when you've invested 19 years of your life as a separate career, that is a really lovely win. Like, Adeline went off and lived on her own for university and just lived life to the fullest and grabbed every opportunity with both hands, and Grayson locked in for school. We had seen him drift a little bit, and he locked in and they both worked, they both, saved, they invested, they just were all the stuff as a parent that you're like, that we're doing okay. And so I just think that, that's a decent high for me, but I have one more high, but I wanna hand it over to you first, Nat.
Did I tell you I bumped into Grayson the other day? We're at Kenneth Warehouse. He was delighted to find out he was our
Mm.
most viewed Instagram post when he was
Oh.
conned into doing a high of the week, a win of the week. He was
Graduated from high
actually
school, which is a
quite
real
happy
thing, but
to
anyway.
he was happy to know that he was our top rated. Um, I think, yeah, I actually think it's a wonderful high, and I feel like especially again, I don't wanna keep harking back to the lows, but that generation of kids has gone through the ringer, like, they were COVID kids for critical points of their schooling. They are coming out into an economic downturn, and all the jobs that for those of us who don't have children at that age, I found that really fascinating. All the jobs that we could rely on when we were their age, 15 to 20 something, where you'd do a paper run or you'd stack shelves or you'd work at a cafe. Those jobs don't exist in the same way anymore. And so, like, all of these challenges that, it's hard enough kind of leaving school and starting a life, but they are operating in a quite a different world than we operated in cost of living, renting places. So I just think it's really cool to see. And I totally agree with you that it's pretty impressive to watch kids going out into the world and being amazing humans. My high. Okay. Are we just gonna list a couple? We'll go back and forth. Okay, I think weirdly, not kids, but my girlfriend has been a real inspiration this year. We're coming up to 4 years together, which we're both shocked by. She tried to jump forward to 5 years. I was like, "No, mate, it's been a while. It's not been that long." Um, but watching her career thrive, and I love that she is, like, she has had some big promotions this year. She is on that, like, really cool trajectory to, like, getting a lot more understanding of how, like, finances and commercial world works and leading a team works, and just like seeing her have a brilliant year despite actually for a lot of people it not being great, and being comfortable saying it's actually been a really good year for me. We also got to travel together quite a bit this year, and I think for us, especially with what we want to do with Power Suit, I think it's amazing to have a partner who is like going to be like, okay, I will come and work from Singapore again for another week or whatever. Um, but like recognizing that's a lifestyle we want to build as well as building a business. I think that's how we yeah, I feel like that was a major step forward. So I feel like, yeah, my life with her was a real high this year because we like got to yeah, there was some cool stuff, and she might be my sugar mama one day.
That's positive, that's great. Oh, I love it, I love it. Okay, well, I actually only have one more high, and it's, yeah, I know.
Tragic.
Yeah, it was a tough year, honestly, but the one high that I've got to share, is, super random, but it is when I was in Canada, the, World Series of baseball was on, and, I am not a baseball fan. I actually don't think I've ever watched. I used to attend games when I was little because that's what you do sometimes as family activities, but I did not understand the game. I do not know the rules of baseball, but I happened to be in Canada when the Blue Jays, which is possibly the only, professional baseball league, team in Canada. I'm sorry to be corrected. I know at one point Montreal maybe we have more Canadian baseball teams, but I Major League Baseball, I think Blue Jays is at least the key one in Canada. Let's just say it's the only one because it makes the story more interesting. So we've got one team in Canada, tons of teams in the US. So it's a very American sport, right? Granted, um, it's more Cuban and Japanese and South American, and so naturally those are the players and American. But the point is that the Blue Jays made it into the World Series. Now think the World Cup, the Olympics of baseball. Like the World Series is epic, and you get the two top teams that are competing one another. And the Blue Jays hadn't been in it for let's say more than 30 years. Canadians hadn't been represented. So I think what made it so special is I happened to be there in Canada during the World Series. First of all, the Blue Jays getting into the finals, the World Series. I think they beat Seattle, which was epic. They played so well. So I got to know the players and the teams, the individuals and the story of the Blue Jays, and that this team loves one another and their team spirit and very Canadian culture, even though probably no Canadians on the team. That just was led so wonderfully and to Canadian core values, broadly speaking. And then got into the World Series, and then I got to watch that entire thing, and it was 3 hours every 2 nights. Every second night, it was a 3-hour game against LA Dodgers. Now, if you think about the geopolitics right now with Trump hating on Canada and division, it was like Canada v USA, so there's that aspect of it, right? You had the LA Dodgers, which were like, now imagine the tech titans of the world against like wimpy little underdogs. That's ultimately what played out. They had the world's best and highest paid player on the LA Dodgers, this guy from Japan, epic guy. So you know the whole thing playing out of like the King Kong of baseball against these underdogs, and then the fact that Canada almost pulled it out, lost by 1 run in the final game, but it got to the final game, 7, in the series, and some games played the longest game in baseball history because it just kept going and going and going, and the stories and the home runs and the fact that I think what was so special for me was, first of all, I love sport, as you know, so I got really engaged, but actually
You love competition and winning,
I tell
seemingly.
you what it is, because in the end we lost, but it didn't matter, it was still a high. That was devastating, but, I think it was that an entire nation, a movement of people that had been so divisive banded around a sport that no one knew. There were memes about how everyone all of a sudden knows baseball, and every commercial was about the Blue Jays, and all of Canada, a nation of, 30 million adults, came together behind a team of ragtag people that were in this ultimate, battle, and it's a time, and that's what I love about sport. You get in an arena of humans that's what I love about the Olympics. There's no war, there's no conflict. It is love and, yeah, okay, it's
It's
simplistic,
everything that's the
but
best of humanity. It's the
oh,
pushing
the
ourselves to be
store
better. It's
oh,
yeah, I so
honestly, the
agree.
coaching stories and the gorgeous stories of these people that had made it anyway, it was such a high. I will never forget it. I'll never forget that experience. I loved it, and I got to watch it with my parents, which was cool.
I think also those situations remind us that despite how terrible things can look sometimes, it actually humans want to back the good things. Like when you see how quickly people get on board with those sorts of situations, you go, "Oh, that's right. The world may feel uncomfortable and weird right now, but actually ultimately you do have to bank on humanity for getting everything together when we need to." I so agree, I love that stuff. It's like why we all love what is it? The Jamaican bobsleigh team and Winnie the Eagle, and I think the Matildas in Australia really took off in the Football World Cup. Like, yeah, we just it's a wonderful thing to get behind. I've got a lot more highs. I feel like it's funny. I'm gonna ask us to rate the year because now I rate things at the end. My next high, I think, is that I think we if anyone knows Kristen and I, we are not known for being patient. And I think that at the beginning of last year, we both had kind of gone, oh, we're like 8 months into a business. Like it's official and all up and running and humming along now. And I actually have learned this year that it probably is a 3-year job to get a business to go from like scrappy into a proper business. So like which is so I think we started last year with unrealistic expectations of where we were at, but I think we finished last year with something that really is starting to resemble a proper business. Like, we have a brand, we have traction, we have people who know about us, we have an incredible unpaid sales force in our members and community. Who I actually got a message for both of us from one of our power suitors this morning saying last week's podcast was the best. I loved it. And like, I just feel like there's something really cool about finishing a year going, that thing that was kind of a mere idea at the start, like, the year before, is now like a functional, repeatable, growing thing that's adding value and, like, immense value to the world. And I think both of us are not really interested in starting or staying at a business for the sake of it. And I think hearing the stories and celebrating the successes of power suitors who've come through the other side of hard things or got a promotion or um, kind of got meaning in their role or figured out what they want to do or know their strengths and can position themselves better or feel less guilty about saying no and prioritizing themselves. Like, that stuff feels like what a win over the year to have a proper business that's doing that, and B, do you have to work on that? Like, to me, I'm like, when I get down or frustrated or the grind kicks in, like, I do like to take a step back and go, what a privilege to be able to work on
Mm.
this.
Mm. Great. Love it. And are we rating? Did
Well,
you say
yes,
we're
but I
rating?
want one more win. I want one more win, and I feel do you want to do one more? Do you wanna have you got another one at all? Can you scrummage one
You
up
do
from
another win
somewhere?
and I'll think if I've got one.
I'm like, this is our highs and lows, really. I feel like you can jump onto my last one because I think it's working together. I feel like it is people often ask us like, "How did you meet?" and "How do you find a great co-founder?" And I'm like, honestly, it's almost like blind dating because it feels like kinda how we met. But I feel like most of the fun stuff that we get to do in our days, we do together, and that's fun. It is fun, and there's obviously like, it's been a grindy year, and there's been some pretty hard times too, but, like, I think, like we even say now, we'll often go to events together, even though that is, like, the least efficient way to do stuff, and it probably halves the amount of income we make, but we get to hang out and, like, do things together, and yeah, and I think we both agree we're stronger together. So I feel like that was a real win to have. What is that, year 8 or 9 that we've kind of been working side by side, and, like, that's pretty cool.
I'm gonna piggyback on those last 2 wins because I think this is a story of my last third being a grind, and so I'm not seeing things as positively as you. And that sounded
No, no,
terrible,
no,
by the
I
way,
get it. This
but
is
I
like
am
me with
yeah,
cooking.
yeah, so I am piggybacking I'm just gonna piggyback on yours and be like, "We did it." Like, 2025, we did something. Very cool. So yeah, I love it. Thank you for articulating that because I genuinely do believe it. It's just, right now, I'm like I
No, I
feel
get
like
it.
I'm still in it because you remember.
I
Which
mean, you
leads
should
me
have literally seen me fishing yesterday, and my friends were like, "Are you emotionally," Kyla said, "Are we emotionally and morally okay to try again?" And I was like, "The morals of fishing haven't changed." And she's like, I was like, "My emotions are not," I was like bowled around in the ocean. My feet are ripped to shreds. I was like, "This is not fun."
I love it. Well, we've got a kayak, by the way. Kyle bought a cheap
Oh,
kayak, and
thank
we're gonna
goodness.
pull out the Kontiki line. We've got a not Kontiki, I'm sorry, the line, we can go up to 1,000 meters. We've got the line, so we'll let you know when we do that. So we'll paddle
Thank
out with a
goodness, we
kayak.
need a rescue boat.
We're gonna paddle out with a kayak and drop this line out. So I'll let you know when the practice is, because yeah, we Kyle's getting everything sorted. Anyway, I'm gonna combine. We've only got a minute or two left here, and what I'm gonna combine is one thing to let go and one thing to take forward. And I'm going to keep it to one and I'm going to combine them because they make sense. Two things make sense as a result of it. I talked about energy. That's something that I'm really disappointed in myself. It's not my fault, but I am disappointed in my energy levels in 2025. So I'm gonna let go of that, and I'm gonna take a couple actions to get my energy back. And the first thing is I'm gonna up my estrogen patch. I'm at the like second highest, which means I still have one step to go with the highest one. I'm going to, and I almost made an appointment, but it was just before Christmas. I thought, you know what, I can't get into the new year anyway. So, an action for me is I'm going to go get on the highest estrogen because I think these things can change over time, and I do think possibly that's the case. I've also read some stuff about micro testosterone. I've also read some stuff about women taking a lot at the moment, and there's some really yuck side effects. But I'm really curious about playing with those hormones, giving it one little tweak in January to hopefully get back some energy. And secondly, is I'm going to get back into the ocean because I think that adds to my energy, which means that I am going to make space for one ocean trip midweek. And I'll have to time it with the waves or the current, whatever the tides. But I feel like both of those things will ultimately lead to a better 2026 with I'm going to let go of this low energy. I'm going to take a few small actions. I think they're both doable actions. And hopefully this time next year, I will look back and go, oh, that was a good year of reclaiming energy.
I love it. I love it. I think mine is somewhat similar, but slightly different. I'm going to let go of expectations about myself and others. And I mean that because we've been talking a lot. I've got some really close friends. We've all been hanging out at the beach since last year. Um, and talking about how sometimes it's really hard to grow as a human around people you know really well because they expect you to be who you've always been. And I just said to them, I would really hope that we are those sorts of friends who allow each other to, maybe I didn't want kids before and now I want kids. That's a terrible example. I don't. Or I am now going to go traveling this way, or I used to like this and now I don't, or vice versa, and not hold each other to being the same people we've always been. And I think that's especially thinking about perimenopause and how I think both of us, well, I'll speak for myself. I've struggled with really recognizing that how I used to be and how I am now can actually be two separate things, and, like, I don't have to behave how I've always behaved, and it's actually a really cool thing to change what your priorities are in life and how you, like yeah, and not, like, feel like, "Oh, I have to work 24/7 because I can," like, more like I'm gonna be the I haven't checked my emails since we, like, went out of the office on the
I love
23rd or
I
24th.
love by you doing that, by the way, gives others permission to do it, and I'm sure listeners listening in will need to have a break from that relationship or that behavior or that situation, and I love that you've just given people permission to dump those expectations, so love it.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
even saying to each other, like, "I'm gonna try something new," because we do have this tendency to wanna hold people to what they always have been to us, and I just think I hate the idea that people have to move overseas or change friends to, like, explore all sorts of different things that they might be, and take forward, I think, is a constant I think if we listen to this time last year, exercise for the joy. I think that is something I always struggle with. I will be the first to go back on my own advice and say, I don't have time. I'm too busy, even though I know that's a terrible excuse. And I actually have had a fabulous year of that. I've just done the Queen Charlotte walk. I've run pretty consistently. I get out and do stuff, but it's become less consistent at the end of the year. So I feel like this is a good reminder to get back into the joy of getting outside, like you say with the ocean, getting outside, who cares what it is, if it's walking, if it's sometimes even like having the little kiddies over Christmas running around playing tag. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like a heffalump because I don't do that like sprinting around, climbing things stuff anymore. And so, like, that's exercise. It doesn't have to look a certain way, but like say yes to those things and do stuff that's fun.
I think I should just point out for you, though, I think that's not gonna be, I'm just pointing out that you're building on building, like, the fact that you maintained all those incredible activities over the year, you're basically just taking a step.
Yes.
It's not like you're starting from scratch to do something, you're literally building on building, and I feel like I did get it a handful of times in the water because I think starting things from scratch is really hard. That's why New Year's resolutions fail, we go too big, too aggressive, so I just wanna point out that both of us, are building on building. And so again, challenge yourself. What's something that you've really enjoyed doing, you're proud of, and what can you build on top of that? Lean more into that direction as opposed to needing to wake up and all of a sudden become a marathoner, whatever. I just think it's important to point that out. So I love that you're doing that.
Unless you're doing the New York Marathon, which is like the only thing that could no, it's still not even close to like inspiring me to do a marathon.
I'm nothing. Just I get nothing when you say that. I get nothing. But I'm trying to get Kyle to maybe try pickleball.
You run past them, they hold up fun signs, you get to run across the, like, Brooklyn Bridge, it's like but no, I feel like instead I'll go run up the, river. So you may be on your way towards me this afternoon, so we
I'm
may.
on my way. So everyone, there is a link in the if you made it this far,
Oh,
you
wait, what's our rating for last year?
oh, rating 6. The first the number that popped to mind, I wanted to say 7, but I'm just gonna claim it as a 6 because then I'm like, "It's only up from here, surely." Sure.
Hilarious that I'm probably gonna give it the same rating, even though I probably sound a lot more positive. Like, I think if I compare it to other years, it was a 6. It was a hard year. But then also, it was a great year for in different ways. It's like what I learned fishing yesterday. What's the success we're looking for? I don't want to problem solve over my holiday. I was like, I don't care about learning new things. I wanna catch fish and more fish.
Success. Success. I wanna eat fish. Okay, again, if you made it this far, there is a link in the show notes. I don't actually do show notes anymore because it looks really ugly when you publish it, and it's ugly, but I am gonna do the link where you can put in reflect on some of the things we've talked about. You will get that emailed, to you, so please go ahead and do that, and we will catch you all next week where we're actually gonna talk about, more about the year ahead and goals and goal setting and mindsets as we go into the new year. But we thought it was important to reflect back first. So join us on that next stage this time next week, and we will catch you all later. Thanks, everyone.
See you in the ocean. Bye.
Bye.